What's up, everybody? Welcome to On West Gray, the monthly podcast about all things local government in the city of Norman. I'm your host, Tiffany Verska, Chief Communications Officer for the city of Norman, and we appreciate you tuning in. Today in the studio with us, we have, fresh off of a July swearing-in, Mayor Tyler Holman. Mayor Holman is a fourth-generation Normanite. His family roots in Norman date all the way back to the early 1900s. He was a longtime city council representative for Ward 7 and recently assumed the position of mayor after a successful election in February 2025. He's most interested in addressing stormwater and water quality issues in addition to housing affordability and transportation throughout Norman. He believes in holding government accountable to the people it represents and serves. Mayor Holman, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited to share with everybody what's going on since I've taken over as mayor, I guess you could say.
Yes, and I guess we should say welcome back, because I think that we had you on for like a transportation-focused podcast in the last year or so. So welcome back. So in this new Meet the Mayor episode of On West Gray, we were hoping to give listeners who haven't met or interacted with you yet a look into who you are and what you're about. Local government successes in so many ways are built on collaborations, which start with relationship building and neighbors meeting neighbors. You're our neighbor, maybe the most popular neighbor around, but still our neighbor. So would you like to tell us a little bit about who Tyler Holman is?
Well, happy to. And as you mentioned, fourth generation Norman person in my family to grow up in Norman, call Norman home, if you will, and served on the city council for 12 years before being elected mayor in February. Served with 4 different mayors during my time on council and almost 40 different council members from all the different wards. And for me, I'm just I kind of would describe it as I'm an only child that was raised by a single dad on the east side of Norman. I went to the poorest elementary school, Kennedy, that, it's almost 100% reduced lunches, but it's also the most diverse school, socially, economically, racial, religious, all sorts of things like that. And then I went to Irving after that, and then Norman High after that. So I'm really thankful for what I was able to kind of learn growing up, where I did and how I did. And I think it's really played a major role into who I am today and how I ended up in this position as mayor. Sure.
And kind of just a little bit more about your background. So you've served with 40 council members. I won't ask you to name them all.
I can.
You said you can? Mm-hmm. I love that. But why did you get into local government? Like, did you just wake up one day and you're like, wow, that looks cool, I might want to do that? Or how did that come about?
As early as I can remember, I was always really fascinated and interested in city planning and architecture and buildings. When I was 4 years old, my dad remarried, and we moved to Dallas, where my stepmom lived and where she worked. And she worked in the tallest building in downtown Dallas. And this is in the late 80s, early 90s, and the building lights up green at night. It's outlined in green lights at nighttime. Now it changes colors, but it used to just be green, so it's called the Green Building. And that's where I really kind of remember my first interest in like cities and downtowns and buildings. And I thought it was really cool that my stepmom worked in a skyscraper, and especially in Norman, there are no skyscrapers, and at the time, there were no skyscrapers in Oklahoma City either. Devon Tower did not exist, and the other tall buildings in OKC aren't really to that level. But that's what I really remember, kind of the origin of my fascination with cities. And then during that same time period, one of my birthdays, I started getting Lego sets, and that's when I just started really developing a real interest in building things with my hands, using Legos, and I gravitated towards building city stuff. And then all I wanted for birthdays and Christmases in my childhood were city-themed Lego sets. Like, I didn't want anything else. I didn't want video games. I just wanted Lego sets, and I wanted the city-themed ones specifically. So architecture, city planning, and things like that are my origin. And then I just started watching city council meetings on TV on Channel 20 public access channel, because they would show replays of council meetings, and you would see presentations for development projects or road construction projects that were upcoming. And I just always thought it was so fascinating and cool to know what was going to be happening before it happened. As far as you're driving around town, you see a construction project going on, and people always wonder, oh, what is that? I wonder. And as a council member and as mayor, one of the most frequent questions we get from people, especially family members, that will text me and say, hey, what's being built over there? My friend was wondering what that thing is, or what's that street price? So I just always thought it was cool to know what that was. And so that's how I got interested in city government, was just watching city council meetings as a kid. And then when I was in high school, when I was a senior in high school at Norman High, I went to my first council meeting as part of the leadership class I was in as a senior, and go to a school board meeting, go to a city council meeting, and write about it. And so that's when I started going in person. And then as I started getting more active in community groups and organizations and projects, Norman Music Festival, art stuff, Art Walk, stuff like that, I started wanting to get more involved in city council stuff and knowing who was in charge of everything and who's running the city and who does what. And so that's how I got into it. And then I was asked by some people to run for city council, or at least think about it. And so that's how I ended up running for city council.
So 12 years, how many campaigns is that for?
I served 6 terms as the Ward 7 council member. The first time I ran for council in 2011, I was 26 years old, and I lost by 21 votes in a runoff against an opponent that was much older and had a lot more money and was much more well-known. But she did not use social media. And at that time, politicians or elected officials or people running for office weren't really using social media heavily yet, especially older people. And so that was something that gave me a big advantage, because I already had a couple thousand friends on Facebook, and MySpace still existed, I think, then too, maybe, but stuff like that. And so that outreach I was able to get from social media at that time really leveled the playing field, even though she had raised like $20,000. I had less than $1,000. So, wow. And I think I had like $700 what I raised, and she was like $20,000. So I barely lost, and I thought, wow, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no organization. And I basically just did it by myself, and I almost won. So what if I got more organized and asked for help and raised a little bit more money? I bet I could probably win.
Sure.
So I stayed engaged. I stayed involved in city stuff. I kept coming to city council meetings, and I got appointed to a committee by then Mayor Rosenthal, the 2060 Strategic Water Supply Committee, and then ran for city council again in 2013 and ended up winning by 28 votes. So, and then reelected, I guess 5 times, twice unopposed. So had to run for re-election 3 times against an opponent, multiple opponents usually, but twice I ran unopposed.
Well, it seems like you had a lot of love in Ward 7. So what convinced you to run for mayor?
Well, people have always asked me about running for mayor ever since I first got elected to council. And I always kind of felt that I didn't run for city council so I could run for mayor. I never really planned to run for city council. It wasn't, I grew up really the pretty shy and introverted. So like, I wasn't real outgoing. And, I played sports in high school. I had friends and things like that, but I wasn't, as example, I played high school football at Norman High, and I played quarterback, but I did not have the same mentality and attitude as Baker Mayfield, for example. I was like the complete opposite. So I wasn't that person. Growing up, I wasn't the person that raised my hand in class. I didn't want to sit in the front row. If I ever was, it was because that's where I'd been assigned. But so the idea of running for a public office, or going door to door, knocking on people's doors at strangers and asking them to vote for me or donate money to me, not something I would have ever thought I could have done, and definitely not natural to me, I would say. So yeah, that just loving Norman, being loving city planning stuff and knowing that that's what the city government mostly deals with. And the everyday, day-to-day things that we all deal with, driving to work or walking or biking or going to school or entertainment or shopping or whatever it is we do, all the things that make up what the city is, that the city council has a pretty direct hand in a lot of what shapes how Norman functions and how it will in the future. And as someone that grew up here, I can look at things and think, oh, I always thought, why wasn't that done differently? Or why'd they build that thing that way? Or I wish we had this feature in Norman. And so having the ability to now have been in a position where I get to be a part of shaping how Norman is for the next generation of kids that go to Kennedy and Irving or anywhere in Norman, but that may have a similar path that I did.
Sure. Okay. Well, tell me, so you have a long tenure on the council and, that's continuing. So congratulations on your new position. What are some of your favorite initiatives that you've been involved with during your time representing the city of Norman?
The biggest one is the public transit system and the city of Norman. I really highlighted it during the campaign that in 2019, when we took over the public transit system from OU, who had been operating it for 40 plus years. It was a major undertaking. It took almost 2 years of work by city staff. It took action from the United States Congress. It took a governor's signature to do, and it was really unprecedented. There wasn't a roadmap for anybody to really follow for how to do this. And some people, in Norman that don't use public transit or they live in an area where they don't think they need it, question why we have it. But for me, I grew up riding it. And growing up on the east side, the first stop on the Lindsay Street route was in front of my apartment complex. And I liked riding it instead of the school bus. It took a little bit longer. I had to ride the Lindsay Street route all the way around since I was the first stop, and it brought me to the OU campus, and then I had to change buses, the Main Street bus, and then that would drop me off in front of Norman High. And then afterwards, I'd have to get on the bus at Norman High, and it would take me all the way to the mall, and then back to campus, and then I would have to change buses and get on the Lindsay Street bus.
You're getting your sightseeing in for that whole planning bit that you love.
I could have ridden a bike or walked from Norman High to my apartment faster than I could have ridden the bus when I look back on it. But that's one of the things I want to try to fix too about how our system operates so that it's more efficient and functional for people that need it. But being able to take over the public transit system and then get Norman voters to approve the first voter-approved dedicated funding source for public transit in the state of Oklahoma by over 70% too. So the fact that we were able to do all of that and do it without missing a single day of service for the riders of the system was really remarkable. And we've been able to update routes and stops, and we now have a downtown transit center for the first time. And we did it by reusing an abandoned bank drive-through in downtown. So reusing an old abandoned property, creating a transit hub that's close to the train station, that's 1 block from Main Street and all the businesses and shopping. So that's really been my biggest thing. But there are really a lot of things that I've been a part of in the last 12 years. Norman Forward, the largest investment in quality of life, amenities in the city of Norman's history, which also has resulted at, if someone wants to correct me, but as far as I know, the largest public investment in public art in the state of Oklahoma, maybe one of the largest in the nation, I don't know, over the last decade because of the 1% for public art that's part of Norman Forward. And, $150 million program, 1% of that is a lot of public art. So,
right.
So there have been a lot of really wonderful initiatives. We eliminated parking minimum standards 4 years ago so we can try to get rid of all these massive empty parking lots and better utilize our existing developed space in Norman, so that we can add more housing, hopefully without, exponentially expanding our physical footprint and allow us to preserve our natural environment in the rural areas of Norman that people love so much. So there's just so many wonderful things that we've done and that I've been really excited and proud to have been a part of in the last 12 years.
I love to hear that. And this is probably a $1 million question for you, but what are some of your greatest lessons learned while serving in public office?
Well, serving with so many different people, a lot of different personalities, like I said, 4 different mayors and 40 different council members, a lot of different personalities from a lot of different backgrounds. One of the hardest ones is learning I can't do everything myself and that I don't have all the answers. But being an only child that grew up raised by a single parent that was pretty self-reliant. I was really independent from a young age. My dad started letting me stay home alone at a young age. I never had a curfew. I never had any rules growing up. And as a result, I was probably the most well-behaved of all of my friends. Like I never got in trouble because I never, So the self-reliance part and being able to delegate to others and allow others to, like I said, my first campaign, I did it all myself because I didn't know how to ask anybody for help. Mm-hmm. And I was too shy to ask anybody to help me. And I didn't even know what I would have asked them to help me do. And so learning how to work with others and ask for help with things when I need it, trusting that other people have good ideas and are capable of doing things just as I am, or if not better. So those are a lot of things to learn when you go from a lot of, kind of relying on yourself a lot to then working with that, did that somewhat in sports. And that's why I liked playing sports a lot, working with a team and towards a common goal and things like that. And in football, you got 11 people on the field at once trying to work together but at city council, you have 8 other people that are elected by different areas of the city and have different backgrounds and histories and opinions and expertise. And so just that's one of the biggest, probably the biggest lessons for me is just learning how to let go, to ask for help, and to trust that others are also capable of doing anything I can do too.
Maybe along those same lines, but what's been your greatest surprise?
I don't know that it's really a surprise. I mean, there is just the level of misinformation and misunderstanding that is out there.
You're speaking to my heart.
Seemingly gotten much worse in the last decade or plus with the rise of social media. And it seems to be harder and harder for people to discern what is the truth. With AI and deep fakes and all that stuff, like, can we trust what an audio recording is? Can we trust a video of somebody speaking anymore? So I'm not real surprised at that because I think there's always been a level of misinformation or misunderstanding or lack of knowledge of things that are going on. I often will see things and I'm that is not true. This is exactly, the meeting happened. It's on recording. There's the minutes from it. Right. If you watch it, you'll see that.
So maybe the level of sophistication.
The city is not closing down Highway 9 right now for construction. ODOT is.
Right. That
but
is
people
not our
online
highway.
are like, oh, perfect timing for the football season's about to start. And it's like, why can't? But it's like, well.
Yes.
Or who approved that thing? And it's like, well, that's being developed under the existing zoning by right, by the person that owns that property. The city didn't approve it, or
right.
Just things like that are, but again, not particularly surprising. Maybe surprising how much it's kind of just taken off,
right?
As far as
the different forms of misinformation.
Yeah, and that people actively trying to misinform people. And to purposefully sow division and distrust and things like that.
Yeah, it can be a little shocking and challenging working in local government. We have good conversations each week. Our IT department keeps us very diligent. And so, we're constantly trying to combat the misinformation as well and reminding people to go to established sources, normanok.gov, straight from the source. So we appreciate the elected officials that help us get that message out. So as mayor, what do you hope to achieve?
Well, we have no shortage of big issues that are existing in Norman that I hope to bring some resolution to. I hope to see the Arena Entertainment District come to a vote of the people. I hope the Oklahoma Supreme Court will make that decision soon so we can, at the very least, have an answer one way or the other, because right now it's just sitting out there. Same thing with the turnpike issue. One of the most divisive issue I can recall, and it's people impacted about it, feel very strongly about it. It's something that goes beyond personal political views. A lot of folks that live in rural East Norman probably don't politically line up with me very closely, but I won overwhelmingly almost all the precincts out there because of the turnpike issue. And not because I promised them that I was going to stop it if I got elected mayor, but just that I also oppose it and I have their back. And if there is anything I can do as mayor of Norman to stop it, I will. And if there's anything the city can do to have the back of our residents, then that's what we'll do during my time as mayor. And so for those folks, that issue goes beyond their personal political beliefs. Many of them voted for someone completely opposite of me for president just a few months before they voted for me in February. So getting a resolution to that issue of if it is going to happen and there is nothing we can do to stop it, then it doesn't need to linger out there as far as they've had to come up with a new route. There's a 3-mile swath of East Norman now where they don't know if they're going to be in the new route or not, or next to it. And so people are just sitting in limbo out there, and we need a resolution to that. And so I remain hopeful that something will be able to stop the turnpike, or at least that part of it, the north-south extension. But I would like to see the whole thing stopped. But at the very least, some OTA getting that route map out, whatever their plans are going to be. And then people can move on to the next part of fighting to save their properties. And so resolutions to that stuff, hopefully getting a resolution to the library situation through the legal course that we're taking against the company that built it. They're suing all the contractors that worked on it under them. And so it's all tied up in court. And so those are 3 big issues on the campaign trail. Also housing and homelessness and things like that related. That one's, I don't see a permanent fix to that in the next 3 years. But there are many things that we can make some progress on and get some resolution on, hopefully over the next 3 years. And then just as mayor, being more visible, being more active with sharing information, or working on better communication from elected officials towards our constituents. But really just championing Norman, being there, being visible, and making sure that everybody in Norman knows they have a mayor that really cares about what's going on in their life and how the city of Norman is impacting it if we are.
Now, surprisingly, we get a lot of questions about kind of the day-to-day of elected officials, the mayor and council members. I think a lot of folks think that that's just y'all's full-time job. It's what you do all the time. So can you tell us a little bit, do you have a day job? What is it? What are you compensated for serving here in Norman?
Yeah, the mayor and council get paid $100 a month before taxes. We don't get any city benefits as other city employees would. The mayor has an office here at City Hall, but the council members don't have an office. There is no staff dedicated to the elected officials in Norman. I have an intern, Anna, who's a senior at OU this year, who asked if she could volunteer to help out. And so, but if it wasn't for Anna, I wouldn't have any staff that's dedicated just to working for the mayor's office or the city council. I've always felt real comfortable about asking city staff in general questions or answers to questions from constituents or do research on something about whatever. But we don't have anybody to help us do any communication as far as emails or phone calls or setting up the calendar and keeping track of all that. So all of us do have daytime jobs or are retired. is what you often see. Mayor Heikler was retired. Mayor Miller was retired. Mayor Rosenthal was a university professor. Mayor Clark also worked at OU. I have worked, many folks in Norman know me from Friendly Market, and I've worked there for 10 years. It'll be 10 years next month. Friendly Market will celebrate its 11th birthday in October as a business in Norman. And a lot of people know me from the deli, the bar on Campus Corner, as the door guy there, usually 1 or 2 nights a week. I've cut it back a little bit, but I've worked there for about 15 years as a door guy, and it's a really wonderful opportunity to stay connected to the community, especially the nightlife crowd and students and things like that. And everybody kind of gets there's even a T-shirt that's been made that my mayor works the door to dive bar. So
I think I saw that.
all the money from it goes to Norman Music Festival. So, and then about a year ago, I got a real estate license, and my fiance is a real estate agent also for 3 years. And it seemed like a real natural fit, being always really interested in buildings and architecture, and having a lot of knowledge about those things and zoning and land use. And my real passion when it comes to real estate is historical preservation, or old houses or buildings that may not be in very good shape, and the owner, and trying to find people to buy them that will want to restore or fix them up and not tear them down and scrape the whole property off and build something modern and new that doesn't fit in with the neighborhood. So it's not always that easy to find somebody that will do it, but being able to try to save older properties, find people that are interested in fixing them up. In some cases, properties that I sold a house last summer that had been abandoned for 25 years. Wow. On Main Street, and was full of stuff, and roof was caving in, leaking, but the woman that owned it wanted to sell it to somebody who would fix it up and not tear it down.
Sure.
And we were able to find somebody that to do that. And so we sold it, and the guy is still working on it. He thought he was going to have it fixed up and back on the rental market by February, and still working on it now. So it's a little bit bigger project than I think he thought.
Take a little bit more
but that's
work.
kind of what I want to get in. We go all over the metro. We go all over from Guthrie to Ardmore to El Reno to Hera. We've shown houses all over. So kind of I guess a jack of all trades. I don't know, or what is it? Jack of all trades, but
master of none.
Master of none. I don't know. City council, 12 years. I could have a doctorate or whatever. If that was a degree, I could be the highest degree of it, I guess. So a lot of lived experience. But I only went to college for 1 year. I dropped out of OU after 1 year. Couldn't afford it anymore. Sure. Realized quickly I couldn't afford it anymore. And always thought I was going to go back. But then I started getting involved in stuff, local stuff, and then running for city council, and then got elected. And then it just never came. It just never ended up going back.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what I do. And I still work at Friendly Market once every other Friday. We help people get their medical cards, state-issued medical cards, renewed or first time. And it's so busy, and I like interacting with all the people. It's mostly older people, too, that are retired, and a lot of them vote. So, and then, yeah, usually the bar, Friday or Saturday night. Usually I did work Tuesday night after. Sorry, we didn't have a council meeting. We had a short one anyway.
Yes.
And so I was like, I can pick up this shift tonight. And so, and then, yeah, real estate. So, a whole bunch of different stuff, but that's really what it takes for me. And it gives me the flexibility to be able to be here today at 10 o'clock on a Thursday and do this podcast, or go have lunch with somebody in the middle of the day, or be flexible. So that's really other people might want the 8 to 5 and a regimen and the schedule. But for me, I've kind of done better having a more flexible way of doing things.
Sure. What would you say our greatest challenge is as a community, and what would you say our greatest strength is?
Both are our diversity, I would say. Our diversity as a community creates a lot of challenges. And by that, I mean Central Norman being historic, older, urban core, walkable, more progressive politically. And then you have a suburban ring that is maybe more moderate politically. and is not as walkable and has a different experience that people that live around campus have. And then you get to the rural areas where it's completely different. And it's a completely different way of life for many of them. When you be much more closely aligned with a smaller town in rural Oklahoma than the third largest city in the state of Oklahoma with a major university. And so the diversity of politics, the diversity of geography, being 200 square miles of city limits. Like I mentioned, if anybody wants to watch our last council meeting from the 22nd of July, I talked a little bit about at the end of the meeting about Norman's unique size in land area and how we are larger than cities like Denver and Atlanta and Kansas City and others that are much larger in population than Norman, but we have the same land area to maintain as they do. And how Norman and Tulsa are the same size in land area, but they have 400,000 people. We have 130,000 people.
Right.
And so the diversity of area, the diversity of backgrounds, again, someone's rural background versus someone who grew up on campus like I did, basically, is very different. And I think, to me, that's one of the things I love most about Norman, is that we have that, but it also creates a lot of real challenges for the function of a city, infrastructure-wise, from representation-wise. Ward 5 is 150 square miles, but it has the same amount of people as Ward 4, which is 5 square miles.
Sure.
Yeah, so, and both of them have one council member. They're representing the same number of people, but that Ward 5 council member's got to cover this whole massive land area. Mm-hmm. And so it's just taking all those things into account, having the lake in our city limits, the interstate running through our town, it's just a lot of different things. So to me, the diversity of Norman is our strength, also creates one of our biggest challenges.
I think that's a perfect answer. So what do you most want everyday people living or working in Norman to know about their local government?
Well, that it is the most accessible form of government we have. It's the one I think people should put the most effort into paying attention to, that it's absolutely the level of government that people should be voting on. It's the form of government where you can have the most direct impact. When you're talking about democracy, local government is it. That public podium down there, and I know, sometimes we get folks that come down there and say some things that are kind of far out or have some very interesting personalities or opinions. But it's also, the state capitol, there is no public forum. And Washington, D.C., there is not either. I mean, you're lucky if you can watch it from the upper deck, and that's it. So, and elected officials at the state and in the federal government, in large part, in my experience, don't feel that they have to answer to their constituents. They don't have to hold an in-person town hall meeting. They don't have to be held accountable by the public every other Tuesday here at City Hall. They can hang out in Oklahoma City in the Capitol. They can hang out in Washington, D.C., and they're insulated from the real world in a lot of cases. There are exceptions, of course. There are some very good state representatives and good people in Washington too, I think, that do a really good job. But it is isolated and insulated from the real world. And in Norman or in local government, I mean, you could run into any of us. Like I said, people come see me at the bar. People come see me at Friendly Market. I run into people at the grocery store or park, or just even I'm walking around the neighborhood in the evening. Sometimes I run into people that recognize me and they're like, "Are you the mayor?" And it's great to talk to people and stuff. But that's part of what I love about it, is that it can be difficult, and we're more accessible. We get paid the least for doing it. It's mostly volunteer. But that's what I've always wanted people to know, is that the local government is accessible, and Norman is really in the perfect size position where it's not small to the point where nothing can be, there's nothing really there. It's hard to get anything done because there is no critical mass. There's no funding. There's no whatever, but it's also not so big where there's this massive bureaucracy that you can't get anything done because it's such a monolith in a big major city or something like that. And there's just so many people that everybody's drowned out and nobody can. But in Norman, it's like we're just big enough and we're just small enough where, a small group of people can have a real impact on city policy and fixing things that might be wrong and things like that. So that's what I always really try to advocate to people, is that on the local level, don't just get discouraged by how you feel in regard to national politics and partisanship and Republicans and Democrats and liberal and conservative and all that, because people do that. They get upset about Trump, or they get upset about Biden, or whoever's president, and they feel like, what's the point of voting? And I'm just not going to vote. I'm not going to engage in anything. I'm not going to care. And when I tell people that at the local level, you get to vote on stuff like a street maintenance bond, or in Norman, you get to vote on water rates or sanitation rates and utility rates. And there's so many opportunities to exercise your right to vote on things that don't involve electing anybody to anything and don't have anything to do with Republicans and Democrats. And so by not voting in those things, you're letting other people decide how we're going to spend our local tax dollars. And if you don't agree with how we're doing it, then you should speak up and make your vote. Because like I mentioned, when I first ran for council, I lost by 21 votes and then won by 28 votes. And then I've seen multiple council races over the years that have been decided by a handful of votes, less than 100, less than 50 in a city this size. So it really does matter, and you can really have an impact. And so people should not be discouraged by whatever's going on at the state and national level, and definitely get involved and stay involved and pay attention to what's going on at City Hall.
Awesome. And a great way to stay involved is maybe checking out boards and commission openings or things like that. All of that's listed at normanok.gov. We have city news there, upcoming events. So it's a really good one-stop shop that you can visit anytime.
Yes, and there are so many nonprofit organizations in Norman that always are needing volunteers and help with whatever anyone can help with. So whether it's serving in an official capacity with the city, as you mentioned, with our various nearly 40 boards and commissions, which are all good opportunities for the public to be involved, and or again, the other organizations in Norman that definitely need helpers and volunteers. And through those organizations, you will find yourself being involved in city stuff, because
almost always
it's all intertwined. So I would encourage anybody to reach out to my office, mayor@normanok.gov, or the clerk's office, or just City Hall in general, if you're interested in serving on any boards or commissions or anything like that, or if you have any ideas or suggestions of things we could do differently.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mayor Holman. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Just again, appreciate you having me here and the opportunity to share with everybody. Would encourage all of our listeners to follow the City of Norman YouTube channel. Also, if you want to watch most of our council meetings are streamed live and then are available for replay at your convenience. So Transportation Committee, Finance Committee, City Council meetings. So if you want to know what's going on in Norman and what the City Council's doing and what the budgets are and all that stuff, it's all available there. And I hope and encourage you all to take a look.
Hear, hear. Questions or commentary about On West Gray can be sent into publicaffairs@normanok.gov. Shouts to our producer and editor, Mr. Bryce Holland of the City of Norman Communications Office. Visit normanok.gov/Norman-news to enroll in email notifications for city PSAs, traffic advisories, and more. Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and always remember to cast your ballot. I'm Tiffany Verska. Thank you for joining us on West Gray.